some of our deepest programming lies in the emotional body. That's where we tuck things away, okay? That's where things tend to just get dropped by the wayside and we forget about them, but they're there and they come back when our nervous system is triggered. Welcome to Activations with JJ Ascension Message. In today's episode, I'll be talking all about the upgrades that we are receiving to our emotional bodies, both individually and collectively, and how we are starting to step into unity consciousness by really sensing and feeling our global interconnectedness. I'm excited to dive into these topics and perhaps help you understand a little bit more what you're experiencing at this time. So without any further ado, let's get started. Greetings, my dear soul family. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. We are already almost a full week into September, not quite there if you're listening to this right when I published it. But no matter when you're listening to it, if this topic speaks to you, I hope that it can serve you as you navigate through some of the changes and shifting that we're going through with regards to our emotional body. And I want to remind you as we dive into this topic that the Earth experience that we are having right now, we chose, first of all, to be incarnated on this planet, which is a lower density planet, taking into consideration, that there are many other planets with much higher frequencies. I don't like to put that in a ranking system though, because a lot of times we tend to put on a pedestal or place in a hierarchy the, first density, second density, third density. I also want to make sure that you understand what density means, because I know when I throw out that word, some people are like, wait, don't you mean dimension? Why are you saying density? I want to let you know that I have a podcast episode. It's probably a couple of years old by now, but I will put the link below. And I really appreciate the author and channeler, Sal Rochelle's explanation of how dimension and density are different. And typically when we're talking about 5D, we are not talking about the fifth dimension. We are talking about the fifth density, and that is a frequency or vibration. So again, as we are experiencing these shifts into higher frequencies, all the parts of our body are going through changes. Now that includes our physical body, our physical cells. We also have a layer that is our emotional body that we take on in this Earth experience. There are other planets, other incarnations where we do not have that emotional body experience. And you maybe have heard Dolores Cannon talk about it in some of her books about how this experience is unique. Now, this is also connected to the experience of duality that we chose here. We're actually shifting, kind of the pendulum is swinging, where when we started in the quote unquote Garden of Eden time, without that, we were all in unity consciousness. And this is more, closer to the time of Lemuria. I truly believe what we call the fall from that place of unity consciousness into duality was one fully manifested and intended by the collective that chose to incarnate on this planet. I actually believe that there is a core team of original inhabitants that has been reincarnating over and over. And I don't think it's necessarily karma, although it could be. I think it's just completing contracts and also choosing to experience and continue to grow and expand through the experiences we have in both unity consciousness, which is what was occurring closer to the time of Lemuria and earlier civilizations. And then as we shifted from that into duality, where, you hear about the fall of Atlantis and how that all came to be and how there was kind of this disconnect between the intellectual and the spiritual, and that is essentially duality. And, then you hear about all of the density experiences with different alien races and the conspiracy theories. Again, those are timelines. Those are frequencies that we can choose to experience, and many of us have. A lot of you I know are at the point where you're like, I'm kind of done with that. I am shifting. I want to play in another sandbox is the way I see it. And you can play in your sandbox and you can sit in your unity consciousness and still see somebody over there playing in their duality sandbox and not necessarily judge them. Because I want to remind you of that. I know there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on. I feel like there was, I want to call it a flare-up of conspiracy theory is not the best way to put it, but like different timeline options and explanations for things, which by no means am I, again, criticizing, because if we didn't have all those options, the earth wouldn't be the earth. But for those of us who do not want to be in that sandbox anymore, it's important for us to be empowered and feel like we have a choice. And the sandbox that we're shifting into is requiring a recalibration of our emotional bodies. I truly believe that our emotional bodies are very, very connected to the physical nervous system, okay? And also the endocrine system. Now, both of those work hand in hand, because when we go into fight or flight mode, of course, we're producing adrenaline. And there's all kinds of things where emotions are tied to the chemicals that our body is producing through the endocrine system. The two systems of the body that my guides are focusing on predominantly in the energy work that I do, as I bring in especially the galactics, most commonly the Arcturians and the Pleiadians, but also sometimes the Lyrans will come through, and then also the star family of the person that I'm working one-on-one with. They are working with, number one, the nervous system, and also reminding me that that's totally tied to the endocrine system. But this is all under the umbrella of the emotional body, is what my guides are telling me. So the reason I'm bringing this forward is because I know that not everybody here is an expert at anatomy and physiology and all of the systems of the body. You're not all in the medical professions. Some of you might understand this and also see how it ties into the energetic body, the energetic systems, the chakras and everything. But what I've been told by my guides and why I'm bringing up this is because there are many layers and levels of our emotional body that are going to call out to be attended to over this next month, pretty much, especially September, but even beyond, where we are being invited to pay attention to predominantly inner child parts of our emotional body. So as we are shifting in consciousness, as our 5D body is coming online, including our emotional bodies, we are needing to attend to these other parts of our multi-dimensional selves. And that is, in large part, our inner child aspects. Now, I'm walking you through this a little bit slowly because there is an energy behind what I'm saying to you, and I don't know if you can feel it. Sometimes words do not suffice, and so my guides will have me go a little bit slower. The same thing happens when I channel, like trans-channel a being. They take it slow because you are not only receiving what I'm saying consciously, you're also receiving it subconsciously. So just let yourself sit with that for a moment. And many of you I know, and I've heard over and over again in some of my one-on-one sessions, they're having these reactions to things in a way that like they're kind of reverting back to childlike behavior. And all of a sudden they'll lash out or they'll say something or do something. And they think in their mind, like, where did that come from? Why did I react like that? And again, my guides have said, this is that inner child piece saying, hi, I'm here. So my intention today is to help you understand how to get ahead of that in a way. And getting ahead of that is not avoiding seeing it or feeling it. It's really just having a game plan in place for when those feelings arise and you can sense that that's coming on, because it's not really serving us in our relationships to be playing out some of the uncared for, like neglected, quote unquote, neglected parts of that emotional body of the child. And so how do we then address it in a way that will facilitate the most rapid transformation of the emotional body for all parts of us? How do we do that? Well, I have a few tips that I'm going to bring forward today, and all of this ties in so perfectly to our upcoming Healing the Inner Star Child workshop. My friend Jen Peters and I, you've probably heard me talk about this, we are going to be getting together in person with several of you in Auckland, New Zealand on the 11th and 12th of September. If you are in Australia or New Zealand. If you are in the United States or Europe, it would be the 10th and 11th. And we just decided, listen, we don't want to limit it to in-person. We have virtual passes that you can attend the workshop. It's a 1.5-day workshop. And the specialties that the two of us are bringing forward and mixing together, I 100% believe are designed to support this emotional body transformation. Did I know that that was going to be a thing like 3 months ago when I set this up with her? No, I had no idea. I had no idea. But you know how spirit works. You know how everything is divine timing. It's all perfect. And I wanted to make sure to support people in this emotional body transformation. And this is one of the ways that I really think is going to be effective. In addition to the workshop that we're doing, and all the info's below if you're interested, and if you get a little ping when you hear me say that, you're like, oh, then check it out. Other than that, though, there are a few really good tips for working with that emotional body. And I'm kind of essentially inviting my team of light to come in right now and help me articulate these in the most clear way I possibly can. Because the first thing that I feel when I tune into those of you who are listening is I do feel a little bit of subconscious hesitation to receiving any quote unquote correction or adjustment to your emotional body. Some of our deepest programming lies in the emotional body. That's where we tuck things away, okay? That's where things tend to just get dropped by the wayside and we forget about them, but they're there and they come back when our nervous system is triggered. See how it's all tied together? But are we not grateful for those quote unquote triggers because they are helping us be more self-aware? So that's one of the very first things we can do is begin to be so aware and track what those moments of trigger look like. Now, I would hope that we can sort of be in those triggered moments without fully stepping into that past emotional, like exaggerated emotional reaction that we would have when we were like 5 years old. You know, it's probably a toned down version if we're an adult. But for some people, it's not. I keep thinking of the Karens. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody and I said, what is it about this quote unquote Karen concept in the collective? What is it? What are we being shown? It's a mirror. See, we forget that. We're like, oh, look at them. I'm like, well, you're creating this reality. Why is the collective birthing out these people? And this can go for anything. It's not just the Karens, but we know that in the Karens, you're seeing very emotionally reactive situations, people who are not regulating that nervous system. There's also like a bunch of stuff about road rage that I kind of was, one of my friends was on TikTok and like, did you see all this road rage? I was like, what? You got grown people, adults acting like children. Why? Ding, just what I was talking about. Their inner child parts are asking for attention and attunement. And so we are being called to stand in that matured, evolved adult part of us, and maybe even calling in like our higher ascended parts, like our galactic soul aspects and our angelic soul aspects, and those wise soul aspects to lead and guide the inner child parts of us. Now, if you really want to blow your mind, you can consider the fact that there's no such thing as time. So all the parts of you exist simultaneously, and you really can, at age 44, tutor your 12-year-old. If you go into like the quantum realm or the void, you know, like if you're going into that place outside of time and space. And this is nothing new. I'm not like coming up with something that has never been said. So much of the therapy world accepts all this. I'm just reiterating it for you and kind of giving you just this little twist on it so you can better understand it. But like I said, with the Karens, it's just modeling that. It's like what needs to be seen. So again, how do we get ahead of it? We pay attention to those triggers and maybe start to document them. Make a mental note. Okay. Now, secondly, one of the other things that we can do is to nurture the inner child. And one of the best ways to do that is to begin to create and use our imaginations, which sounds very basic. It makes me laugh that they're bringing back all of these vintage TV shows from like the 80s. And even the Barbie movie is in a way vintage because you're bringing back a toy that many older people played with. But like there's all kinds of movies coming out that are nostalgic. Why? Oh, wait a minute. I actually 100% believe that creatives are inspired for the most part. Like I when I see things come out, I'm like, ooh, that's medicine. We are being called to pay attention to and nurture that inner child. When you tap into that inner child, what you are then doing is you are tapping into that creativity and that imagination, that playfulness. You're not taking things so seriously. Allow yourself to laugh. And that right in and of itself allows your inner child to be seen. As you begin to get to know your inner child by reenacting or re-experiencing some of these things. In fact, one of the things that Spirit told me the other day, it was so interesting. Spirit said, people could create a playlist from different ages of their life. So like if you were born in the 70s and you created a playlist from like 1985, it would remind you of when you were 8 years old or whatever. And then you could go back in that frequency that it's holding and you could interact with that part of you and say, hey, I'm here. What do you need? Now, I've talked about this before. Last month, I said, we are not only working with our inner child so we can help heal our inner child and activate our inner child. Guess what? We are interacting with them so they can also activate us, so they can bring healing to us because it's an energy exchange. It's an energy exchange. So that's kind of the second thing that I would recommend you do is really nurture that inner child and tune into the frequencies of all of those ages. And you know the important ones, friends. You know the important ages. This has been coming up over and over again. Like people will be like, I have a block. I have a block in this area. And 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, oh, that's not you. That's your 14-year-old self, or that's your 22-year-old self. Okay. And people get frustrated because they're like, I've done all this work. How can I still have a block? I'm like, but did she do the work? Not the work, but did she experience that? So it's really just bringing in those parts. I had an incredible session just the other day where I brought someone in and all of a sudden I imagined she was laying in like on a meditation, like a yoga mat meditating. And she was receiving like a healing from her guides. And then they showed me the room just grow in size and all of her ages came in and they were all in this like giant yoga class meditating on yoga mats. I could just see them. And she said the way she saw it was like this accordion paper doll. And she could see, there's all the versions of me. And I said, great, they're all here. They all want to receive this healing, this activation, this upgrade, whatever it is. Okay, so that is essentially, I'm going to just leave it at 2. I feel like that's 2 pretty in-depth tips on how to do it. So watch what your triggers are and what ages of you are reacting to certain triggers. Let's put it that way. And number 2, nurture that inner child with creativity, with nostalgia, whatever it is you need to do to really lean into your play and your childlike self to get to know them. Like, did you ignore them? Did you lock them in the closet? Because you're like, I don't want to deal with you right now. And you know who you're talking about of the ages. So, take a deep breath because again, this is a subject that is tender for people and is feeling that way. I'm kind of going to segue into something else really brief and then finish up today's episode. But what I want to remind you is that this is what I've been talking about is very, very individual. It's very much something people are experiencing individually, but there is a whole collective component to it of collective inner child parts of ourselves. And when I referred to the Karen situation, I was like, that is a manifestation of a collective energy. And it's not just them. There's other, I'm not picking on that segment, but there's just other parts and pieces of society, of the collective that are coming forward and reacting in certain ways. And I'm not judging it, right? Because I know people will be like, they're justified. They've received abuse in so many different ways. And I get it. I'm not even trying to discount that or spiritually bypass that. I'm just saying that we can hold space for each other and co-regulate so that our bodies just don't burn out, because our collective nervous system will be worn so thin and we won't be able to really have the even energy to build out this beautiful 5D Gaia that is waiting for us. So paying attention to your reactivity to like just plain old news, how it triggers the nervous system. This is back to the trigger thing. And I'm meaning like your connection to the collective, because it may not be affecting you individually. What is the best thing that you can do when your heart goes out to a certain group that's suffering? What's the best thing that you can do? Is it reactive? Is it proactive? Is it to maintain a regulated nervous system? And I'm not, again, saying and trying to spiritually bypass the people that are feeling very passionate about certain causes. So this is the piece of, my information I'm giving you that you have to run by your own discernment on what it looks like for you. It looks different for every single person listening, but the main idea is the same. We are all tied together. There is out there a collective nervous system that we all contribute to in every way. We do it when we're having conversation with a family member. We do it when we show up on social media. We do it all the time. And our little contribution does make a difference. So the more that we can stand in our sovereignty, because this is all about empowerment, there are different ways to react to suffering and what you would consider to be less than ideal situations on the planet. And it can get really depressing really fast, especially for empaths. I feel that sense of like just not wanting to be here anymore because it's a lot from a lot of people. And that happens to many starseeds in their like teenage years, even their childhood years. This is why we're doing the Healing the Inner Star Child workshop too. It's that sense of like, I don't know why I'm here. And my guides are like, we gotta keep him here. We gotta keep him here. We gotta show him what it's for. There's hope. Like they have power. It's important for us to realize we have power to make a difference. So empowered responses to global situations that we are really feeling because we're empaths. How do we react from an empowered place? Well, usually it's not reactivity, like emotional dysregulation and reactivity. It's like standing in our power even more in a very neutral way sometimes, because there's not really a taking sides when you step into unity consciousness. It's an observing, it's a holding space. Is everybody being called to that? No. And that's why my podcast is different than other people's. And that's why my information is different than other people's. I honor other people's opinions and yours as well, because you might differ a little bit from me. Please trust yourself. When you hear information and you learn new things, take it into your heart and decide what parts of it resonate most with you. That's what's important to remember as we step into this 5D and unity consciousness. There is this sense of, we're all like one and everything. But we also honor each other's inner wisdom, because that is our inner wisdom, right? Their inner wisdom is my inner wisdom. My inner wisdom is their inner wisdom. Even though it might be different, but it's the same. There's so many paradoxes when we get into unity consciousness. Anyhow, I hope that touching on some of these topics today has served you. I want you to just remember that there is so much beauty out there. There is so much to enjoy out there. There are so many gifts from Gaia that we sometimes pass by. And so take some time to go outside and appreciate and be grateful. That frequency of gratitude is so powerful. My guides keep saying, be in the frequency of gratitude. Be in the frequency of gratitude. I think that will truly regulate your nervous system and really help in those areas. My friends, I am just, again, speaking of gratitude, guess what? I am so grateful for you. I am so grateful for you for being here to co-create with me. I appreciate also the willingness that you have to simply like the episode if you're on YouTube, to share it, to leave a comment, whatever you can do to sort of support the frequency. And then, of course, the algorithm will take it and spread it across the world more and more and more as people continue to respond that this kind of content resonates. And I want to circle back to something I mentioned at the very beginning before I close out the episode. If you felt a little ping when I mentioned the Healing the Inner Star Child workshop, and some of you might have heard me say it like 12 times, and you're like, I didn't feel anything then, but now you do. Take a look and see what it's all about. If you're listening to this way after the fact and you're like, oh, I didn't know, this is like in 2026. Remember, I'm letting those playbacks live and be housed on my website. So you should be able to access those and partake in the conference, because there's no such thing as time. You don't have to do it live. You can really participate and co-create due to the beautiful blessing of technology and being able to record. All right, my friends, I want you to take another deep breath. I feel like we are needing breath, okay? And I'm sending you so much love, big, big love, my friends, and reminding you that I am you and you are me and we are we. Until next time.